One of the most subjective and talked about topics in all of sports, let alone just combat sports. Who is the greatest of all time? And when we go to women's MMA, the broad spectrum of fighters that could be considered the greatest of all time is not that large. Women's MMA, established at the highest level in the biggest organizations in the world, is a rather new addition. Yes, we've had fighters like Miesha Tate and Valentina Shevchenko and other pioneers who have fought in MMA decades ago. But in recent times, women's MMA has just began their stride. They're realizing their skills, they're realizing their talents, realizing their potential in the sport. So women's MMA being rather new, it's going to be a lot easier to pinpoint who is the greatest of all time and who is among them. If we narrow it down, we only come to 4 fighters that can be in that tier. And I believe those are going to be Amanda Nunez, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Ronda Rousey, and Cris Cyborg. Now, is it Ronda Rousey, the face of women's MMA, the first UFC female champion with a record of 12-2, an impressive record? She has never gone past the 3rd round in any of her wins and each of her losses. Ronda Rousey has the record of 6 title defenses as well as title wins, and has some record-breaking finishes: 14-second submission of Kat Zingano, 16-second knockout of Alexis Davis, 34-second knockout of Bethe Correia. And if you want to merit her status as being one of the biggest stars in MMA period, her skills in judo, her submission abilities, her famous armbar, able to get that in any transition, is among the best out of all female fighters even today. The notable opponents in Ronda Rousey's career were Miesha Tate and Kat Zingano. Especially back in that time, in the early parts of women's MMA, they were pretty formidable opponents. And had a rather short career, not too many fights on her record, and only began her professional career in 2011. The second shortest only to Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And then we go to Joanna. Joanna has an amazing record of 14-1, the second best record of all these fighters. Joanna has the second most title defenses with 5, but she ties Ronda Rousey with the most title wins with 6. And the reason for that is Ronda was given the belt and she defended on her first title fight, whereas Joanna had to win the belt, and then her next fight would have been a title defense. She wasn't handed the belt. And Joanna has showcased some of the best striking out of all female fighters. Some of the most pinpoint accurate strikes, her surgical performance on Jessica Penne, her then shocking domination over the former champion Carla Esparza, and her masterful striking performance against the juggernaut in Jessica Andrade. And Joanna's competition is not lacking either, being formidable opponents like Claudia Gadelha twice and Jessica Andrade, other fighters like Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and former champions like Carla Esparza. Her competition could be argued to be the second best out of all these fighters, whereas someone like Ronda Rousey, Ronda has fought fighters who were a little bit behind the times, and you could see Ronda Rousey's opponents, how they are performing today. It's not to the level of the fighters Joanna has beaten. Or is the greatest of all time going to be Cris Cyborg? Cris Cyborg has the much deserved aura of invincibility, coming with a record of 20-1. She has only lost her first professional fight and has not been beaten for 13 years. That is by far the longest out of all female fighters in the world today. One of the most dominant fighters on the planet as well, having knocked out 17 opponents out of her 20 wins. Has some record-breaking finishes like her 16 knockout of Hiroka Yamanaka, 46-second knockout on Charmaine Tweet, 45-second knockout on Faith Van Duyn, and she's the only fighter to be a champion in the UFC, in Strikeforce, and Invicta. And in the UFC, she is currently on a 2 title defense streak, 3 title wins. That is being on par with Amanda Nunez already. And beat a fighter in Holly Holm. Holly Holm being by far the best fighter she's ever faced. Beat fighters like Marlis Conan and Gina Carano way back in the day in her 9th professional fight. And in the fight with Holly Holm, you saw her skill, you saw her patience, outboxing the former professional boxer for 5 rounds, showcasing some of the best skill set out of all female fighters. Not just brute power, not just speed, not just tenacity, not just aggression, not just cardio. She has all that, but her technical approach and her skills in there is among the best as well. Everything that comes into being a great fighter, Cris Cyborg has. The only knock on Cris Cyborg has been that she has failed her drug test. She has tested positive before, way back in 2011, and that is the only hindrance in any of her accomplishments. But since she's come into the UFC, she has been one of the most tested athletes in their roster, period, and never has failed a drug test. Or is it going to be Amanda Nunez? Amanda Nunez having a record of 15-4, the worst record on the list, but with that record comes the strongest competition on the list. When you look into Amanda Nunez's record, the fighters she has beaten Valentina Shevchenko, Shevchenko twice, which is probably the best opponent on any of these fighters' lists. She has beat her twice. Amanda's one-sided shocking domination over Sarah McMahon. Her one-sided fight against then-champion Miesha Tate. Another smashing performance against Germaine Durandamy. And the most famous, the 48-second demolition of Ronda Rousey. And the thing about this, she has finished all these fighters besides Shevchenko. Out of her 15 wins, she has only went to the decision twice. And she has not been beaten since 2014, where she made a drastic improvement and a complete change and updated all of her skills. She is a complete new fighter since her last loss to Kat Zingano, and she has showcased that with some of the most impressive victories and performances out of all these fighters. And same as Cyborg, she's on a 2 title defense streak and 3 title wins. She has the fastest finish out of all these fighters with an 11-second corner stoppage on Patty Barboza, and she ties Ronda Rousey's 14-second submission with her knockout on Julia Budd. And looking at Nunez's skill set, she is one of the most well-rounded fighters on this list, maybe just behind Chris Cyborg. She has the boxing, she has the movement, black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, legitimate knockout power that is very rare in female fighters. The only knock on her skill set is her cardio, but she has developed a way to pace herself to compensate on that cardio issue. And not just the wins, we have to look at the losses of these fighters. So when we go back and look at Ronda Rousey's knockouts, she has probably the most devastating losses out of all these fighters. She is currently riding a 2-fight loss streak. The Holm knockout in the second round was devastating as well, complete outclass for the entire fight. And that was followed by that 48-second knockout from Amanda Nunez. Those are by far the worst losses out of all these fighters. And then we go to Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who has probably the second worst loss, but it's only the lone loss of her career, was in her last fight when she fought Rose Namajunas, got knocked out in 3 minutes and 3 seconds of the fight. And then we go to Chris Cyborg, who is the best in consideration with the least impacting losses on their career, because her only loss was her very first fight, way back in 2005, where she lost in 1 minute and 48 seconds by a knee bar. And then we go to Amanda Nunez. Amanda Nunez has the most losses on her record. Her very first fight as well, she has lost in 35 seconds by a arm bar. Then again, it's her first fight. First fight losses don't really hold too much merit when it comes to MMA. In her 8th professional fight, she lost to Alexis Davis by TKO in the second round. And then 2 fights later, she lost to Sarah Diallo by a decision. And then she lost 3 fights later in her 3rd fight in the UFC to Kat Zingano by a 3rd round TKO, a fight that she was winning until she gassed herself out. Now, having the most losses counts for something, but the way her losses went and the merit that they hold, it's not as much as being completely blasted through like Joanna and Ronda Rousey were. So looking at all this, looking at all the stats, the greatest of all time is gonna have to be Chris Cyborg. Chris Cyborg has arguably the most skill and the most technical out of all these fighters overall, the most well-rounded, and combined with her attributes, like her knockout power, her cardio, her fight IQ, she is at the top when it comes to everything involved. Now, her competition and her drug test way back are the only things that are questionable. She has the weakest competition out of all these fighters, there is no argument to that. But even against a worthy opponent in Holly Holm, she has shown that she is well above that skill level. And her dominance, 13 years undefeated, has not lost since her first professional fight. That is a very rare thing to come by, because in MMA, it's very hard to go on these long win streaks because there's so many variables getting thrown at you in a fight. So those are the greatest of all time. The list goes Chris Cyborg, Amanda Nunez, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and then Ronda Rousey. These are by far the best fighters of all time. I will be updating it as the years come by. Like I said in the beginning, it's a pretty new addition to the highest levels in MMA, and it's going to be very exciting to see who else is going to be bunched in with these 4. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe. If you agree with me or disagree with me, be sure to leave that in the comments. I'm very curious to see what you guys think as well. Like I said in the beginning, it's a very subjective topic. For my next video, I'm going to break down another fight. I'm going to go back to my fan voted breakdowns. I haven't done that in a while, so be sure to leave a comment below on which breakdown you guys want to see next. I'm going to try to get it out before my podcast. My podcast is going to be on Tuesday, and I'm going to leave a comment below labeled questions for podcast or something like that, so you guys can leave your questions under there, and the questions with the most likes get read first, and Twitter questions get read before YouTube questions. And if you want to tweet me, just hashtag it MMA meeting. The link to my Twitter account is going to be in my description. And as of now, the breakdown considerations in the lead is going to be Tony Ferguson versus Edson Barboza. You got John Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson. Those two are really up there right now. And if you guys want to demand for anything else, just be sure to leave it in the comments. So be on the lookout for that. And again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.